Minister. Good morning to the Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, online and TV 15 viewers, radio listeners via St. Martin Gov Radio, 107.9 FM, and respective radio stations island-wide. I'm Rolika Roach, and welcome to the live Council of Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Public Health, Social Development, and Labor, Omar Otley, to address you. Minister Otley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolika. Good day to the members of the media, my honorable colleagues, Prime Minister, Minister of Justice, Minister of Finance. It's a great day to be here today. I'll be real brief. I think last week I was not here, and there was a question posed to one of the ministers pertaining to the entry to St. Martin. Well, today is November 2nd, and as stated, as of November 1st, you are free to travel to St. Martin as regular. There's no more filling out of EHAS. There's no more testing required. There's no more vaccination status required. We are completely open. I know before we spoke about gathering information for touristic purposes and marketing purposes. We have agreed with all stakeholders in a meeting with SHTA that we would allow this period for us to work together to collectively make a proper ED card, which is used in Curacao, Aruba, and other places. So we're going to do it collectively together and institute this hopefully by March, where it can be not cumbersome, very easy, and persons will know that their information is specifically used for data analysis. So with that being said, St. Martin is open. You can fly to us as you want, as you feel, when you feel, and we welcome each and every one to the sound of my voice to come to St. Martin. We are expecting an amazing season. There's a meeting held on Friday with tourist stakeholders, with the Ministry of Justice to ensure safety for the amount of visitors that is expected on our shores. So I thank you very much, Rolika. I look forward to any questions from the members of the media.
Thank you, Minister Otley, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Justice, Anna Richardson, to address you. Minister Richardson, you have the floor.
A pleasant good morning, Prime Minister, colleague ministers, members of the press, Ms. Roach, the listening and viewing public, the media, and of course, a special good morning to all senior citizens. Hello, November. During the month of November, our awareness campaign against domestic violence and gender-based violence are at the forefront. The Ministry of Justice continues to champion for the awareness against domestic abuse and violence in an effort to eradicate this practice within our community. The ministry, along with various NGOs on the island, continue to encourage women, men, and children, both male and female, to report anyone who may be causing them harm. Perpetrators must realize that being abusive to others is unlawful, it is a crime, and it is punishable. We are asking you to seek help so that positive contributions could be made within our community and that you can get the help and support that you need. And I just want to reiterate the fact that this past week, I did put out a publication to give an update with regards to the legal position of police officers, or the police law, which now does also recognize officers from Lancershire or our national detectives, as well as persons within the immigration department, both with the mobile team and border protection. Anyone who probably missed that, those updates can always visit our website, www.ministryofjustice.sx, or you can contact the cabinet and we would be free to share with you the publication via email. I have no other updates at this moment, and I'm available for any questions that the media may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, Dr. Anders Rudolph Samuel, to address you. Minister Samuel, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Roach. Good morning to you and to CoM. Good morning to the Prime Minister and my colleagues. Good morning to the people of St. Martin. As Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports, together with the Department of Sports, we are pleased to announce and congratulate the final nominees for the 6th Annual Brown Pelican Awards. These awards recognize and celebrate the very best in 2022, as nominated by the National Sport Federation and voted for by the selection committee consisting of members of the St. Martin Sport and Olympic Federation. I would also like to thank and congratulate all St. Martin athletes, coaches, and organizations for their accomplishments and for continuously supporting the development of sports in St. Martin. To us, you are all winners. The 6th Annual Brown Pelican Sports Award will be on November 13th, 2022, starting at 4:30 p.m. at the Alice Convention Center and Event Hall in Madam Estate. Tickets are $10 and can be purchased at all Van Dorp stores and the NSI office at the Raoul Village Sport Complex. All proceeds will go towards the development of youth basketball. See you there. Sports matters. I would also like to indicate that last week, the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports participated in workshop sessions with UNICEF the Netherlands to develop the annual work plan for the Child Resilience and Protection Project. Under the project, funded through the St. Martin Trust Fund, UNICEF Netherlands provided technical support to the ministry. During these sessions, priority areas, activities, and anticipated outcomes were collectively determined for 2023. Focus was placed on the 3 main components which address various aspects in 1, nurturing children and adolescents' well-being, 2, strengthening school and the ministry's resilience to disasters, and 3, strengthening the child protection system. These efforts, among many, translate into the upcoming reopening of the Youth Desk and launch of the Youth Desk website for young people. Also develop a distress screening tool. Also the training of the care teams to use the distress tools in schools. Also the development of a program to be used by the staff of the early childhood development centers and after-school programs, and continuous development and training for the positive parenting program and the violence prevention program. As mentioned, these are a few outcomes that relate to the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sports that aim to benefit children, parents, teachers, schools, caregivers, and which ultimately should have a positive influence on society in general. More information of this will be provided as the activities unfold. I would also like to indicate that prior to the disasters that occurred between 2017 and 2020, which were the COVID-19 pandemic and the natural disasters Irma and Maria, exams results demonstrated that students were having academic challenges. These challenges, coupled with the assumed learning loss experienced in 2017 and again in 2020 and 2021, were expected to increase the challenges and negatively affect the academic performance of many children. Because it is necessary to improve the literacy and numeracy skills of all students in public and subsidized schools in St. Martin, the ministry will begin making these improvements by introducing a literacy and numeracy strategy. The introduction of the international standardized assessments will begin within the primary education, as early ages are seen as the best period to introduce literacy and numeracy interventions because it is the period when students are learning to read and write. These learning assessments are scheduled to take place in primary education of this school year, 2022-2023, and subsequently in secondary education in the future. The primary benefits of introducing standardized learning assessments within the primary and secondary level of education are: one, standardized learning assessments lead educators to plan and prepare age and appropriate activities for level of development to meet the individual child's need and interests and the expected learning outcomes. Two, administering standardized learning assessments at early ages also play a significant role in the early detection and prevention of possible developmental/learning barriers experienced by children. The Department of Education, in collaboration with the Division for Education Innovation and the Division of Examinations, is proud to begin implementing this strategy. The development of the strategy is to improve literacy and numeracy and to have far-reaching positive effects in education. The Ministry of Education, Culture and Sports, in collaboration with school boards and other pertinent stakeholders, will continue to work towards the future development and implementation of this strategy in the best interests of the children of St. Martin. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel, for your opening remarks. At this time, I would like to invite the Honorable Prime Minister and Minister of General Affairs, Sylvia Jacobs, to address you. Prime Minister Jacobs, you have the floor.
Thank you, Relaika. Good morning to you. Good morning to my colleagues present this morning, the members of the media, people of St. Martin, and of course, the support staff of the Department of Communications. Without you, none of this would be possible. Thank you. This morning, I would like to just emphasize that meetings held last week with the ministers, or 2 weeks ago now, I believe, with our ministers of foreign affairs of the Netherlands and the prime ministers of the Caribbean were quite successful. I'll be having a follow-up meeting this week virtually with the Minister of Climate, Minister Hoekstra, Minister Rob Jetten, in this week to be able to finalize the preparations for his representation of the kingdom at the COP27, which we are unable to attend next week. This is on matters related to St. Martin and the other 3 countries as small island developing states, and to ensure that in the kingdom presentation to the COP, that it also includes the 3, in fact, more islands within the kingdom that are in the Caribbean, but specifically the countries of Aruba, Curacao, and St. Martin. Last week, as you know, the fire department, we've held several meetings, and we're continuing to work on some of the challenges that they are facing. Some are short-term fixes that can be done pretty quickly, and those are being resolved this week, while others, of course, will take some more time. Specifically, the fire department's new fire suits, which were on order and had technical issues, are expected within the next few months. I'm not going to say a date because we're trying to do our best to speed that up. Of course, I also want to congratulate them on a very successful open house, which was held on Sunday, bringing the community together to understand more about fire safety and the like, and also participating in several activities, showing them, demonstrating to them, not just the fire department, but also the ambulance department and other stakeholders like insurance companies were there, gas companies, in terms of how to use fire extinguishers, etc. So I do encourage the community to continue to be aware of the hazards within our homes, businesses, etc., and to do everything to protect ourselves, thereby minimizing the risk to yourself, your family, and our firefighters. I will continue to meet with them, and I expect that within the ministry, I'll be getting monthly updates on the various challenges that they face, but also other challenges within the ministry as well, to keep my pulse on it, to not allow it to reach to the stage where it got to last week. Also in good news, next week we'll be doing the official launch of the National Development Vision. This is something that we've been working on for a while through the Ministry of General Affairs under the Department of BUC. In July, earlier this year, in meetings with the TWO and base at CA, We really, as St. Martin, that is with the ministry's delegation, emphasize the need for any reform packages to be linked and anchored within St. Martin's greater strategic plan, and that has to come out of the National Development Vision. So we're very happy that we're so far now that it can be officially launched during next week, and the official program will be announced subsequently, but it does start during the week, and many people have been invited, but I'm sure there'll be other opportunities for more persons to join the sessions that will take place from the 8th to the 10th of November, and will end just before the St. Martin Day vacation. So we will then have a better idea as St. Martin where we're going. I do look forward to that, and we'll be updating during the course of this week and next week on that launch. Congratulations are due for St. Martin, as it took a lot of background work over the past 2.5 years to get to this point. So the goal in the end would be to ensure that all the reform packages are embedded within our and prioritized based on St. Martin's National Development Plan, which will be derived from this vision. For now, Rolika, that will be all in terms of, oh, yes, one more thing I did have written down. October was a month filled with celebrations of the Day of the Elderly, the Teacher Appreciation, as well as Breast Cancer Month, among others. I think the animals were also celebrated in October. It's a very heavy month for celebrations, but I think breast cancer awareness truly dominated October. And I want to thank all of the stakeholders who, whether it was through sport, through walks, through sessions, really highlighted the need for us to get checked. Prevention is better than cure. And so many of the survivors came forward with their stories. To date, I mean, of course, with so many people going out and get tested in October, you may even find people just recently finding out that now that is their journey as well. So I wish all the people of St. Martin who have lost loved ones to breast cancer or any cancers and who are currently in the journey to be strong, wishing you much strength. Government stands with you, and continue to build your immune systems with whatever health issues we are facing. I know mental health also got some attention during the month of October, but I don't want us to only focus during a specific month. Make it your lifestyle change to focus on your health, to focus on your family, and that we can move forward. And I join the Minister of Justice in recognizing that November now is Gender-Based Violence Awareness as well as Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and that hopefully we can get as much visibility and as much awareness in the population to break the silence and ensure that no one has to endure these types of ills within our society. So we move to eradicate, but awareness is key and education is key. I'll be updating later on as well, as I've signed off on a few contracts for Resembid funding for several projects that are very, very important for St. Martin, and we'll be issuing press releases on those. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs, for your opening remarks. I would like to re-invite Minister Samuel. Minister Samuel.
Thank you, Rolika. I would like to inform the public of St. Martin that the funds to buy the lights for the John Cooper Coastal Lake Ballpark in Cul-de-Sac has been approved by the Council of Ministers. And I want all the people of St. Martin, including the athletes and those who especially play softball and baseball, to know that we can now go over to the next step, and that is to purchase the lights and the poles. And then the step after that is to have them installed. So I am glad to inform the public of this, because since Hurricane Irma, everyone wants to know when we are going to get the lights repaired. So we are moving on little bit by little bit in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel. If you've just joined us, you are watching the live Council Ministers press briefing for today, Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. Thank you for joining us. We now move on to the question and answer session. I would like to inform, however, that the Minister of Finance, Artwell Edion, is present, however, will not be making any opening statements, but available for any questions the media may have. The floor is open, and Bibi Hot Shaw of SMN News, you have the floor.
Good morning, Relaika. Thank you. Good morning, colleagues, ministers. Good morning. My first question is to the Minister of Justice, Minister Richardson. I took note of your press release regarding the police officers that asked to leave St. Martin because of the function book and their salary scales. Because of your statement, Minister, I did some research. First of all, I must say thank you, and you're the only minister since 10-10-10 who actually work on the function book, but it's not yet enacted. Minister, in 2010, the government back then, they increased salaries for all politicians and top civil servants. Police, customs, immigration, prison guards, those lower scales were not increased since 2010. 12 years later, Minister, can't you kind of salary scale adjustment not suffice for these lower scale workers? Can't there just be a salary scale? Because the function book is just legalizing the position. We're talking about salary scale adjustment.
Okay, so what I'm going to do here is explain that there's a difference between the function book and the police law. The function book is done. Excuse me, the function book is done, and indeed that speaks about the specific positions, right? Legal position is the Rechtspositie, along with the bezoldiging, which is the new salary scale structure for police that is currently together at the Council of Advice as we speak, being reviewed. And so when we talk about new salary scales, it does mean that some adjustments in those salary figures are now available. Okay, so we just have to allow this process to complete so that the realization of that can be at the forefront.
And is there funds to pay these police retroactively when this is enacted?
That's a very good question. And we have indicated several times that we know our financial situation. As such, we have to go into an installment arrangement with the officers. Hence the reason, let's say, for example, with the verdict that we just had, excuse me, yes, the LBAs were given, the salaries are adjusted to, as per now, going forward, be as it should, but there is a retroactive payment that needs to take place. But we have to prioritize those payments because keep in mind that there is a 50% that is pending from what was paid in January 2020, right? There's a collective number of officers that are to receive that 50%, and those who receive the positive verdict are a part of that. So there is an amount that's coming to them as well in the lump sum that is reserved on the 2022 budget. So what we are doing is working to be able to have the necessary calculations done, disburse those funds, and understand that even with that disbursement, because now deductions are going to be applied, there's going to be an amount that is going to be left over. Those amounts are going to be used to see who and how we can pay the differences, let's say, with the verdicts. So in addition to what you're getting from the 50%, your verdict says you're supposed to get X amount. From those monies that are now residual, we would be able to pay out a portion to that. But the government of St. Martin has to enter into payment agreements with the officers that are entitled to back pay. In addition to that, the officers, I think, would be able to appreciate that approach than a lump sum payment if we had it, because then you would get taxed heavy. Nobody wants to get taxed heavy. You really want to be able to walk away with as much net as possible. So that's a discussion that still needs to take place. But it is definitely the priority of the Council of Ministers, as I've said, the Council of Advice, the CCSU. My person and my staff spent about 5 hours with the CCSU most recently to be able to get the consent and the covenant signed so we can get it to the Council of Advice. 5 hours sitting together with the screen, going through line for line, word for word. His Excellency Bailey is also very supportive in being able to get this done. So all hands are on deck and we're pushing. I recognize that it is a frustrating situation because it's more than 11 years. However, from the onset, I made one thing very clear. I am going to use the legislative trail to get this done because when it's done correctly. I'm not doing anything ad hoc. I'm not doing anything just to satisfy individuals in the meantime, and then when I'm not here, all sorts of realizations comes after. No. In this capacity, I'm going to make sure that I'm going to do it the correct way. I know that's long. And I'm sorry that it is long, but I think that in the long run, it will be appreciated that it was done correctly. Yeah? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson, and thank you, Bibi. Jacqueline Hoffman of the Daily Herald, you have the floor.
Thank you, Rolaika. Good morning, ministers. Minister Otley, regarding to EHAS, the money that came from the disaster fund that was assigned to EHAS, the remaining, is it going back to the government coffers? And if not, what is the money going to be used for? And I would like to ask you kindly if you could answer the questions that were sent to you by email in the past weeks.
The money from the disaster funds is in the government coffers, so it's not going back to the government coffers. They were just paid. Can you ask me some of the questions that you sent via email? Sorry? Can you ask me the questions that you sent via email?
Regarding to VSA, regarding to EHAS.
No, can you ask me? I'm here. Ask me. I would like to answer you.
But they're very elaborate.
Can you ask me one, two? Can you ask me?
One is about VSA. According to the structure, the organogram that Dr. Best made, there's 27 FTEs at VSA, and in his presentation he said that only 50% was covered. So he had 13 people employed at VSA. So my question was, will these other positions be filled in? Is there an inspection? Is there an inspector that needs to be there by law that is looking into hygiene, environment, one for medication, but also for like pesticides that come into the country? Are these listed? Who is doing that? Is the Inspector General, she's a doctor, but she hasn't practiced as a doctor for a long time. So the Inspector General should be a practice or a registered doctor. So these were some of the questions I sent to you.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. As it pertains to Inspectorate, we had many discussions with Dr. Best. This was before my time and ongoing. And it's a reason that some of the positions are not filled. Some of them are budgetary issues in which we are trying to look into. And some positions are, what's the correct word for workers that are out on sick leave? So they're on sick leave, extended sick leave. And we are looking into, so we just signed off to do whether the relevant, I won't say research, but contact these persons to see if they can return to work or what would be our decision, because we look at it as empty positions, but they're not empty. The persons are out. So that has been a big problem for Dr. Best. So we have to look at the entire report and not just some of the report. And some of his complaints, even in my tenure, he has complained that he cannot fill certain positions because persons actually occupy that position. They may not show up to work because they're sick on our own, but that's what we're working on to see how we can make those positions well available. But of course, we need to consult and ensure that the person is really not able to return to work. As it pertains to the inspectorate position, there was a call that went out, public call. Many persons didn't apply, especially locally. So we redid it to allow the opportunity, and that will be finalized real soon. As far as the Inspector General having to be a doctor, that is something we are looking into, because if you look at Aruba or Curacao, the requirement is the knowledge of law, especially in Aruba. The Inspector General is not a doctor, and that is something that we really need to base on, because the Inspector General, their main core task is to ensure that all laws are met and followed. That is their main core task. So that is something that we're looking into as well. Any other specifics, I'll be happy to answer.
How many people are working now at the inspection?
Oh, I don't know. At the moment, I don't know. So I'll give you that answer, definitely. But you said something about EHAS?
Yes, asking about EHAS, you said that the monthly cost of EHAS was 144,000. You said in an interview.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is if that has now been lowered because some people have been dismissed.
Yes, correct. But I want you to realize what I also said is that the budget from the disaster fund was 1.6 or 1.5 million, and due to budget constraints, the budget that we have now is 500,000, and that is and
Is that going back to
can I please? I'm trying to answer you. Yes, and 500,000 for the year. So therefore, it cannot be contained. That's the reason now the little remaining persons that are there has agreed to be on a phased-out approach. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Otley. Jacqueline, I'd have to interrupt you now. You've had enough time for questions. Prime Minister Jacobs.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to just address the salary scales question that was asked. Within our reform package, there is a study being done, a market study, to do comparison of salaries. And there are other, let's say, actions that we are looking at as government to address, especially the challenge we have with the lower scales. This was also one of the things that I have addressed since I came in 2019, but priorities. For instance, a lot of people don't understand, for the function book of justice to be done, there had to be a collaboration done with the P&O department, and it's a very small department, the policy section, that would work on that. So that was prioritized and is finished, and we're currently working on function books for the fire department, which is more or less done, and ICT department from general affairs, but in fact, the entire general affairs had to be restructured. Seeing that the department is small, we pulled out those two as being very, very urgent. But even within, besides these professions you mentioned, there are others that fall within those scales that are challenged. And so we're looking at ways in which we can structurally deal with that. So I just wanted to let you know, from a general affairs perspective, that there's a broader research being done, but we're looking at short-term possibilities as well. These do impact the budget, however. So as our Minister of Finance like to say, if we want to spend more money, we have to earn more money. And so I look to the Minister of TEAT and his statements about a good season coming up, but we also need to ensure that we're doing everything we can to shore up the finances of government so we can meet the obligations and do the things that we want to do to meet the needs of the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Minister Otley.
Good day. Thank you. I think this is going to be the last time I comment on it publicly. We're going over the same thing over and over and over. We're trying to squeeze blood out of stone, and you're trying to, I won't say you, they're trying to paint me as something that I'm not. The reality is, this is a reality. Aruba, Curacao, the rest of the world, Anguilla, the workers that worked at CPS diligently during the outbreak of COVID-19, all understood it was a COVID assignment, all. And everywhere has job protocol, and this is life. When we lock down, when we put stringent measures, we are hearing that the minister is stifling the community, we are stifling, and I have been one of the last to drop the measures. I'm not gonna do this every week respectfully on something that I don't know what point is trying to be proved, when we are advertising great stuff, like the Ritz-Carlton coming to St. Martin, and this ship coming to St. Martin, an amazing tourist season. Anytime we speak of something positive for the people that has been suffering in St. Martin, there's a negative connotation about EHAS. The same article over and over and over again that discredits the good work that is being done to give St. Martin the season that we deserve. And while a few may be upset with my decisions, one thing I've learned in politics, you cannot please everyone and you will not please everyone. And the few that will be upset, but I can tell you the thousands will be happy come Christmas time. The thousands will be happy when more jobs are being available. The thousands that are being hired in hotels the hundreds that are being hired in hotels for the season will be happy. I would like to read one last thing from the Civil Code Law of St. Martin. Article 672, termination may occur on any day unless by written agreement. Another day has been designated for this, which is done. Point 2, the term of notice to be taken into account by the employer with a labor agreement is 1. If a person has worked for 2 years but less than 5 years, 1 month notice. If a person has lasted 5 years but more, 5 years or more but fewer than 10 years, 2 months notice. This is in the law. This is Civil Code, Article 672. Persons that work there were less than 5 years and receive a month notice by law. So I just wanted to clear that up. I hope that we can focus now on positive contributions towards our country. If not, then hey, so be it.
Thank you, Minister Otley. Before we continue, I would just like to remind the members of the media of the rules and regulations of the live broadcast. I would now like to invite Lyndon Brown of BCN TV. You have the floor.
Good morning to the people of St. Martin and the ministers that are present here today. Question to the Minister of Justice. Minister, as I speak, the Haitian National are very disappointed in the aspect of deportation. According to my understanding, when one Haitian national being hurt, everybody being hurt. And Minister, in the aspect of the constant gun battle in Haiti, are you thinking of waive deportation for Haitian national?
Mr. Brown, that is not something that I could do. In order to waive any type of law, it has to go to Parliament to do that. So, as I've indicated before, every situation is analyzed according to its specifics, and we try to see how we can help as much as possible. But further than that, the immigration laws are being enforced.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. Thank you, Lyndon. Andrew Dick of TV 15, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Good morning to the Council of Ministers. My question is for the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Education. Concerning the vacation allowance, I know it's been a belaboring issue, but recently the school boards had a meeting with teachers, and they were informed that government withheld 12.5% for their subsidy, so therefore they cannot pay the vacation allowance this time around. Any reactions?
Let me. Thank you, Mr. Andrew, for the question. This question has been posed many times over and over and over. And many times over and over and over, I indicated the subsidy to the subsidized school boards in 2020 was not cut nor reduced. The subsidy to the subsidized school boards in 2021 was not cut nor reduced. The subsidy to the subsidized school boards for 2022 were not cut nor reduced. I hope maybe at this time it will now be clear that the subsidies were not reduced. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister Samuel. Minister Edion?
Yes, Minister Isiwayas is correct. But in addition to that, you said there was a meeting held with the school boards, and that was mentioned. Which meeting are you referring to?
That took place on Monday with the PSBE and also the academic.
Oh, but that's a school board. That's not school boards. That's one very clear on that. Because you said a meeting was held with the school boards.
Yeah.
So it sounded as if every school board was in a meeting.
Not every school board.
No, so this is specifically the FAVE. Yes.
Yeah.
So again, the minister already indicated that no school board subsidy was held back in terms of 12.5% or 10%. If any was held back, would be the regular subsidy ordinance of the 10% which you have paid after submitting your financial and your audited financials. In addition to that, if that's the case, they could also provide evidence of this. So you don't have to have a back and forth of this. If it was held back, they could just show evidence that this was held back because of this specific reason. But we also already have a letter from the school board specifically after the meetings where they indicated that we had a meeting and these are the possibilities. That there is no holding back in terms of government for paying vacation pay. So it's on the school board now to pay the vacation allowance.
Thank you, Minister Edion, and thank you, Andrew. We now move on to the second round. Bibi, you have the floor.
I'd like to ask a follow-up to the Minister of Finance. Since we are talking about vacation allowance, can you tell us, Minister, at the same time, I do know that you said a number of times that no subsidy was withheld, but indeed the school board is saying that money was withheld, and I can tell you that there's an impending action that to be taken by teachers of the St. Martin Academy. I can tell you that upfront because these teachers have been asking for their money way too long. What I'd like to ask you, though, Minister, civil servants, going back to 2020, since the pandemic and the cuts, their vacation allowance, I think they got 50%, then they didn't get anything, then they got the 100%. Is there any outstanding for civil servants? If you can clarify that before I can ask my second question. My question is to the Prime Minister, can you give us a full update on the investigation of NVGEBE at NVGBE? Can you tell us when a board will be installed, a complete board? And what about the suspension of the statutory director and the liquidity support of NVGEBE? Recently, the company said that less than 50% of the people that received bills are in compliance. When will this connection take place? Do we expect to see a dark Christmas?
Minister Edion.
Thank you for your question. No, there's no outstanding vacation allowance to be paid out.
Prime Minister.
As shareholder, you know how I stay with updating on the ins and outs of government-owned companies, Ms. Shah, but I will give you a general response. You had a multifaceted question there, and I definitely didn't take all of the notes. I can mention that 2 new board members have been added, so there are now 4 board members at the supervisory board level. The Council of Ministers/shareholders receive reports. I think we've also put that out there from the temporary manager/special representative on a regular basis. It's supposed to be every 2 weeks. I believe the second one was a bit late, so the second and third one have come in over the past week, and we are busy with that. We're being updated on a regular basis, and I will not be commenting on anything related to any ongoing processes. Those are internal matters that, as I mentioned before, we're not going to discuss publicly. The last part of the question?
Paying of bills.
Oh, right.
compliance.
That definitely.
And the disconnection. When would
So
that
those will, I'm not going to any specific question you have as to disconnections and operations of NVGEB. You would have to direct to NVGEB. We are getting the updates in terms of the finances. Indeed, we still have to have the discussions, but I've been saying this here publicly. We have been receiving electricity and water. I think everybody has their responsibilities. There was an urgent cry back then, and people were going to be cut 1st of September, and people did go out and pay. So that tells us that you can pay. So there should be that responsibility that you cannot expect to continue to receive it endlessly without paying. So people are asked and encouraged to do your diligence. We're hearing that the economy is picking back up, make payment arrangements. So that was also something in September that people were fearing. We're not even going to get a payment arrangement. NVGB has come out, communicated the possibilities for such, which has always existed at the company. And so I think the people of St. Martin now have to step up. The majority are seeing opportunities for work. And if you cannot pay off, of course, everything in one shot, there's an opportunity for your arrangements. Because at the end of the day, the company has bills to pay and is reliant upon its clients, the people of St. Martin, to do their part, while we finalize and hear from them the plans to get their, let's say, the other things in order in terms of ensuring that the quality of the billing is up to order, etc. Those are the things that we're receiving the reports on and we'll be meeting with management about as well. So I do, finally, again, encourage the people of St. Martin to live up to your responsibility. Don't worry about when the cut date is. Avoid it for yourself.
Thank you, Prime Minister Jacobs. Jacqueline, you have the floor.
A follow-up question to Minister Otley. You shared the wonderful positive news that there's no more EHAS. So the question is what the 25 employees that are assigned under EHAS, what their tasks now are while they are phasing out, what are they going to do? My question is to the Minister Richardson. 2 weeks ago, a young girl at 4 o'clock in the morning, she left her house because she was beaten by her boyfriend, and she went to the police to file a complaint, and she ended up in the police cell herself one night. A letter has gone out to the prosecutor about the detention of people in domestic violence. There are other cases. There's another case with a man that was, his girlfriend chased him with a knife. He ran out to the street. He was panting in the street and the police came and they handcuffed him. But he was the victim in this case. He also ended up in the police cell. I just want to ask you what your take is on this.
Thank you for your question. So I've had this conversation with both the prosecutor's office and the police, and they are moving or they operate according to what the law says. In these instances, you have both persons in the situation filing accusations against each other, and it is the police responsibility to act accordingly. In all situations, or in some situations, you have relationships that we, in our definition today, call it toxic, where both could be aggressive, but in further investigation, you can sometimes identify who's more the aggressor. I can't go too much into the details of it, but at the same time, the police, as well as the prosecutor's office, has expressed to me that in their assessment and in their investigation, as part of it, they have to take certain actions, and that is what they're doing. And that's the most that I've got from them.
Can I ask a follow-up?
You already had a follow-up, I'm sorry. Lyndon, you have the floor.
Question to the acting Minister of Theatre. Minister, sometimes it sounds like to some people that you're a defensive minister, but I will say you are being specific. Minister, the big story, you have been posing with the international artist, Minister. And that's a big story, Minister. Also, the Minister of Finance can tap into the question. What in it for St. Martin? There's an expectation that a lot of people will be coming to the island. So can you elaborate, Minister? And this weekend, they're going to be where big artists going to be in the festival village.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. I would first like to answer the question of Ms. Hoffman. Ms. Hoffman, you answered your own question at the end. You said they will phase out. It's not 25 employees. Persons have been contacted, has been thankful for the opportunity. Now that EHAS is no longer available as of November 1st, some persons has agreed to stop. Some persons has actually started to look for jobs. Some persons have been employed. And what we are doing is a phased out approach at the moment. So at the moment, I think there will be a schedule of maybe 4 persons at the facility. That will, of course, we still have the automated temperature scan and so forth. And if you witness anyone that maybe have thing, you can just question them and have the opportunity to, pull them aside. But they have all agreed it's a phased approach. So that's how it's going to end. But I do encourage everyone that has been working. I publicly want to thank you for your services. I publicly want to thank you for the time and being able to get this country back up. We have also delivered a service to them in a time when no one was working, had no jobs, and the economy was down. So I think that we went hand in hand with each other. So I just like to publicly thank them and encourage anyone to use this opportunity to look for employment. Mr. Brown, yes, as it pertains to the Burner Boy, that is some positive news. I would like to, first off, congratulate the promoters for a job well done for having him here. There was a lot of doubt, but he's not only here, he's here days ahead. This is good promotion for St. Martin. The welcome yesterday was well warmed and well received. He seemed very down to earth. He interacted with the kids. He sang with them. He danced with them. and he promised to give them an amazing show. So I would encourage anyone. I mean, I don't know how far this press briefing reaches, but everyone that is listening, if you're not in St. Martin, I would encourage you to come to St. Martin and have this experience. So definitely it is a big win for St. Martin. And again, thank you to the promoters for making this possible.
Thank you, Minister Otley. Minister Richardson?
Thank you. I just wanted to add a follow-up to what Ms. Huffman asked, because she spoke or asked about specific cases, which I've indicated as much as I can about those specific cases. But ultimately, the subject matter here is about domestic disputes, right? Domestic violence. And we are in Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is something that this ministry is championing against. We want people to live happily together. For example, the OM's office, along with Safe Haven and SEIS, have come together and they have launched a program called Safe Homes, ultimately mediating with couples to be able to have their living relationship be amicable, be safe, be respectful. So there are efforts within this ministry and our partners to be able to support relationships to be as healthy as possible. Circumstances happen where altercations does take place, but again, the police as well as the OM's office is saying that they are following the law as it is stated, and once either party or both parties file a claim against each other, they must act accordingly and investigate until the end. So in no way, shape, or form do we support any sort of violence against anyone. And we don't like to hear the fact that, yeah, in an instance where someone who identifies themselves as being victim is also being incarcerated. That doesn't sound good at all, but it is the elements that surround the specific case that contributes to the outcome. So we want to do our best as much as possible to provide a safe environment where persons feel comfortable and safe to call the authorities, because that's one of the things that was my first concern. How does this feel to the community and those who are in these circumstances? They will no longer feel comfortable to call the police if they themselves are going to be arrested. I've even expressed, is there not a window or a space where it is expected that self-defense comes into play? So if the other person or the perpetrator in this case has physical defense marks, do we identify them as defense marks? So the conversations are happening, and we're trying to see if there's any particular policy that could build around it. We're working into it, but I just don't want the sentiment to be that there's a fear now to call the authorities because of what could be. One just needs to be able to state exactly what happens, and eventually the truth will come out. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Minister Richardson. Andrew, you have the final question.
Thank you, Ms. Roach. Question to the Prime Minister concerning the fire department, just as a follow-up before my question to Minister Otley. As far as one of the situations that the union told us about was mold in the building at the ambulance department. What exactly is the government doing so that we could have a safe situation there? And then as far as my question for the Minister Otley, with the season being here, the airport, big concern as far as the terminal building reconstruction's been stalled. Many are worried. December is coming. What is the Council of Ministers doing concerning that? Thank you.
Thank you for your follow-up question regarding the fire department. Indeed, if you can recall, a year or more ago, we did have a situation of mold in the fire department, and we had to remove them, redo it. So it was really a surprise for me to hear that there was still that situation. The challenge that we have is that part of the mold remediation and repairs at the fire department, including the new doors, the fire trucks, a whole bundle of stuff, was put in the trust fund projects, ERP1. Those are still ongoing. And part of this is related to repair to the kitchen and what has been determined also on my visit there, because I also visited after seeing some pictures, that there is a condensation problem between an area that is warm and an area that is cold. So it is something that just reoccurred. So it was completely cleared out, but now it's reoccurred. And the other issue appeared to be related to the air conditioning system. So the fix that we consider one that could be done quickly is that the airco specialists, et cetera, and engineers are busy dealing with that during this week. So hopefully, and I did get a report in my inbox last night, but I wasn't able to to read it from facility services. So government is responsible, the Stichting Overheidsgebouwen as the owner of the building, as well as the trust fund. So based on 3 entities being involved, it will require a bit of an investigation as to what specifically falls under the scope of work of the trust fund, and then government and SOG will take the responsibilities for the rest. In the interim, the Department of Facilities is working out what can be done, and we'll figure out the logistics later. But definitely that is being dealt with, including what is in the section where the ambulance is.
Thank you very much. Before I start, I'd like to say this is one of the smartest medias that we have. You say, I have one question for the Prime Minister, then one for the Minister. I'll follow up. The smartest media. But definitely, Andrew Dick, this is a very, very good question. Of course, unfortunately, the airport won't be ready by December, but what we are working on is a high-level plan for the busy season to help facilitate the expected crowd. The airport has even taken some of the booths that were used in EHAS. I just got the information. We actually only have 10 workers remaining at this moment. So a lot of the booths will use to help to facilitate a quicker turnaround time. We are also in discussions, as you know, just to give you a prime example, JW Marriott and so forth, to help to see how we can facilitate guests as quickly as possible. When it comes to the airport, we are having, the council is having another updated meeting, but what I can tell you as Minister of TIAT, we have been in close deliberation, as well as I have relayed everything with the Prime Minister. I told him the main concern at this moment is our departure hall. We need to have our departure hall ready. So we are met with an issue, but what are we going to do? So let us do it in phases. Let us have our departure hall ready. So we are expanding the workforce. You will see probably an invite, a job fair, something real soon. As Minister of VSI, I'm also looking into the national interest of the country. So what does this mean? Does this mean that I would have to grant maybe for the next couple of months a grace period on skilled workers after we do our call? But we are, as government, has agreed that we will do everything possible to facilitate this airport and especially this departure hall. It is priority. We need a departure hall to create that experience for persons, especially first-time visitors. So that is, we're doing a phased approach now. And the update, I think it's tomorrow, right? Tomorrow we have an update. So I guess next week you'll have another follow-up. But I give you a preview.
Thank you, Minister Otley. Members of the media, this does bring us to the end of the question and answer session. As customary, any further questions can be sent to the Minister's Cabinet in writing. Honorable Ministers of the Council, members of the media, radio listeners, and online viewers, this brings us to the end of the live Council Ministers Press Briefing for today, Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. For rebroadcast, tune into St. Martin Gov Radio via 107.9 FM, Telemcell TV+, the official Facebook page of the Government of St. Martin, YouTube channel Government of St. Martin, and TV 15. For video on demand, log on to the Government of St. Martin's YouTube channel. On behalf of the Department of Communication and the Government of St. Martin, I'm Rolika Roach and wishing you a pleasant day further.